Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is Luvcoding.com. You can join us on our Facebook page for regular updates, Love Codings. You can also join us or watch our YouTube videos and subscribe and share. Go to Love Coding YouTube. Today we shall be talking about lists in Python. Lists are very similar to strings, as we have discussed strings in our former video. And don't forget, we are still working on the Spider editor, and the IPython console for the output. This is Python 3.6. If you want to use the Spider editor, then you need to go and download Anaconda. Go to Google. We have described that in our first video. Go to Google, type Conda download, and then select Anaconda for Windows if you're using Windows, or Linux if you're using Linux. So today we're talking about lists in Python. And as you can see, some examples here, lists are very similar to strings. But the difference is, we discussed about string, and we said strings are enclosed in quotes, double quotes, single quotes, or triple quotes. But lists are enclosed in squared brackets. So a list is a combination of different values enclosed in a square bracket separated by comma. As you can see, list 1 here with 4 items, all separated by commas, numbers, and letters. You can see list 2, numbers and letters in list 3. So this is a valid example. These 3 are valid examples of lists in Python. We can run them to see the output on the console. Just select a portion. Remember, we're working on the Spider editor. You don't need to run everything like if you're working with normal idle. You just select a portion of the code, click the little arrow here, and then you get your output. So this is the output. We said print list 2, and this is list 2 on the console. Lists are very simple to work with, but they're very useful in Python, particularly when you want to do data analysis. You start downloading data and all that. You want to store data in files. You need to know much about lists so as to know how to use lists to store your data in the computer. Now, the next thing we'll talk about is accessing values in a list. How do you access the values in a list? It's so similar to what we have discussed in our string class, in our string lesson. Accessing the values on in a list simply means calling the element in a given index. Remember, we said in our former video that the index position of an item in a string is the position of that item inside the string. The same with the list. The index position of each item on the list is the position of that item in the string, in the list. So this is the list, and this is the first item on the list, and it is in the first position. The first position in the Python compiler is in index 0. So we can identify the items based on their indexes, starting from first index, which is 0, second index is 1, third index is 2, and so on. So this is physics is index 1 is in position 1 but index 0, sorry. Chemistry is in position 2 but index 1, and so on. The same thing with the items in list 2, and the same thing with items in just 2 lists. So if I want to get this value, we're talking about accessing values in a list. If I want to get this value, all I need to do is to call this list and call the index of the value I want to get. So if I say list 1 position index 0, is going to get me the first item on the list because the first item is in index 0. So I just put this just to see this on the console to know what I'm trying to print out. List 1 position 0, just a string. Remember, strings can be enclosed in single quotes, double quotes, or triple quotes. We've talked about that in our first video. So this is the item we want to get, the item in index 0, and that is physics. If we want to get from physics up to 2000, then we'll say list 1 starting from 0. We'll put colon here to the last item, but we'll come to that later. So let's see what this is going to give us. Print. Let's just do this first print statement and see what's going to give us. So list 1 position 0 is physics, as you can see. So look at the second statement, the second print statement. It didn't just specify just one single item here. Okay, let's just use here. It didn't specify just one single item like in this case, but 2 items. This is because we're trying to use the range operator, the square bracket and the colon in the middle. If there are no items in the square bracket, it means give me everything in the list. If I say list 2, print list 2, and I have the square bracket and the colon like this, it simply means give me everything in list 2. So we can just run it so that I see how the range operator works. We've discussed it in our first video. For those of you following us, you would have seen that in our first video. So you can see list 1. Okay, yeah. So forget about this one in the string here. This is just for us to know what we're talking about. But this is the item this is the command that gets the item for us. So this is the command we're looking at. So if I don't specify anything between here and here, it simply selects everything in the list, and that is what it has done. So but I want to get 2 to 4. Okay, let's say 2 to 5. I want to get number 2, 3, 4, and 5. How do I specify that in the command here? So I'll say print list 2 starting from the item in this index. Remember, you're going to use the index position, and that is 1. So starting from 1 up to which element do we want? 5. 5 is in what index? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you actually want to get 5, then you must finish the index plus 1. The index position of the element you want to get plus 1 is what you are going to specify here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm not going to put 4 here. If I put 4, 5 will not be selected. We can run this to see. So I want to get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's what I have here on the console. If I change this to 4, it's not going to get this 5 because the number specified here, the item on that position is never selected. The Python interpreter will only display items from the first position up to this position minus 1. So this is called the range operator. We have described it a lot in our first video. I would be happy if you can see our first video, the Python strings. It will help you to get better understanding. So this is the range operator, using the range operator to access a value in a list. Just simply placing the position of the item you want between the squared brackets separated by the colon. Okay, so how do you update the values in a list? Please don't forget, if you have any question, you're very welcome to ask your questions in the comment section. You can go to Facebook. It's better you go to Facebook and talk to us on Facebook, talk to us on our YouTube channel, chat us up on our website, luvcoding.com. We are always happy to give you as much answers as we can. So now, how do we update the values in a list? For instance, here, the first list here is called my list. Any name at all for the variable. This is just a variable to store the values in this list. So my list equals this. Then I just want to print this. Value available at index 2 is, I can move this up. Put it here. So I can remove this since we already have a print statement. So value available at index 2. Where is index 2? 0, 1, and 2. So this is the value at index 2. So at the moment, value available at index 2 is what? Let's run it and see. It's 1997. 1997. So, but now I want to change the value at index 2 to be 2001. Simply, like as described here, all you need to do is call the name of the list, which is my list, and then the position of the item you want to change. The item I want to change is in the second, the index 2. This is the position of the item. So I put the position of the item in the square bracket and then put the new value I want for the item after the assignment statement. So I can remove this also. So if I print this, it will change the value. It will only print the value, but the best thing we can do is to print my list again. So we can say print system is kind of slow. Okay, my list. So that we can see the new value of my list. Let's run everything together so that we'll keep it at this console. So this is a new value of my list. My list initially was this is my list at the first instance, physics, chemistry, 97, 2000. But now we updated the value in index 2 and changed it to 2001. So when we reprinted the my list, the new my list now has 2001 in the place of 1997. So that is how to update the values in a list. It's very simple and straightforward. Just simply call the name of the list you want to update, and then the position of the item that you want to change, and then the assignment statement and the new value you want to assign to that position. Now, how do we delete an item from a list in Python? So similar to what we have done. The only difference is we use the del function. So here we have this list 1, the same list we have been using. Then we don't need to print it, we have already printed it. Then we'll delete the item in position 2, just like we update. In this case, we just delete the item in position 2, and then after deleting the item, there should be a comma here. So what is the new value after deleting the item? Let's run it and see. We're going to delete this, and then what will be the new value of list 1? List 1 is this list. What is list 1 going to look like after 1997 has been deleted? The system is behaving strange. We need to wait. Okay, I think it's okay now. So we run this. So after deleting value at index 2, this is the new list, physics, chemistry, and 2000. The item in index 2 is gone. Now let's look at the operators, list operators in Python. Good enough, the list operators in Python are similar to those in string. In fact, they are basically the same thing. We'll talk about the concatenation operator. We have mentioned it in the string. Talk about the repetition operator and the membership operator, and also the iteration. So the length, okay, we can remove this and talk about it when we come to functions. So the first operator we're going to talk about is the concatenation operator, so similar to that of string. Simply by using the plus sign, two lists can be joined together. Although there is a method, a predefined method for this operation, we can also do it simply by using the plus sign. So if you have list 2, then x equals this list without a name here plus another list, just any two lists at all. We can just add both lists together by using the plus sign, as that is known as concatenation in list, concatenation in string and also in list. So we'll add two of them together and we run this, just this line. is going to give us the two lists combined together. Simple and straightforward. Then the repetition operator, unlike the string, the repetition operator for string repeats a given string for a certain number of time. But for list, the repetition operator repeats the item in the list for that specified amount of time. So we're going to run this and see. It's going to repeat the item in the list and not the whole list. Unlike a string where the whole list is repeated, the items in the list is repeated. So you see, it repeats hi, 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 the items in the list and not the whole list, including the bracket. But if it were to be a string, it's going to repeat all the string for the number of time repeated. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about the membership operator using the in statement or the in command. We want to know if a particular item is in a given list. You have a list here. You can call it any name, but we're not calling it a name here. So let's say we can say if 3 in, we can just say, okay, let's use what we have here. If not, I wanted to just change it to the name of the list, but it doesn't matter. So if 3 in this list, print I made it. And if it's not, don't print anything. That is what this is going to do. So it checks the list and see I made it because there is 3 in the list. That is the membership operator using the in command or the in statement. For X, well, you can also do if not 3 in. If 3 not in, you can also use the not in. I'll describe that in the string. I don't want us to keep repeating everything, so you can check that out in our first video. You can see about the not in. It's the same thing basically, just write not in and then put the name of the list. I put the list or the name of the list. For X in 1, 2, 3, for this X in this tree, print X. This is an iteration operator. What it simply does is, for all the items, we call each item now is called X. Each item is called X. So for each of this item represented by X, X will be like a counter counting each of the items. So print X. So for each of the item, you print X. The value of X at the first time is 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is an iteration operator. All it does is to reprint out everything on the list as we have represented it with the X letter. So if we run this, it's going to print out all the elements in the list. Now, talk about slicing in list. Slicing in the list is just like what I've discussed before. It's just about picking an element from any position in the list. Exactly what I've discussed here, accessing values in the list. That is slicing. Just pick up an element from any position in the list. So look at this one. M list is jolly, 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 small letter, title letter, capital letter. So if I say print M list 2, I want to get the item in the second position, just what we discussed of accessing the values in the string. That's also called in a list. I don't know, I keep using string. Okay, this is list, okay? So the item in the position 2, 0, 1, 2. Remember? Oh, this is the only thing we never mentioned before, the negative position. You can also count the items using a negative number. If I say -2, because if I'm going to use the negative counting, you're going to be starting from the right side. Just the same thing, but the difference is if I'm using 0 to start my counting, if I'm counting from the left, I start with 0. If I'm counting from my right, I start with -1. So if I'm going to count from the left, this is going to be 0, 1, 2. If I'm going to count from the right, this is going to be -1, -2, -3. So the item in -2, -1, -2 is going to be jolly. So you can print everything and see what they are. So simple and straightforward. You can see Python is very fun. So that -2, -1, -2 is jolly with a capital J. Now print list starting from 1 to the end because nothing is specified here. Remember when we discussed it earlier, we said if anything is specified here, you start from the number here and then stop here. So nothing is specified here, so it's going to get everything from 1. So we can run this before I change it and show you something else. So everything from 1, this is 0, 1, capital J and capital letters. If I remove 1 here, put maybe nothing, and then put here 2, it means start from the beginning because nothing is specified. Okay, you can run that on your own and see what it gives us. Now we'll talk about list functions in a list. Very simple and straightforward. So we're going to use this 3 list to talk about function because it's straightforward. So this list is this, that list is this, and this is a sequence. Just call this sec or whatever. So print line this list means count the number of items in the list and print it. That's the len function for list. The same thing as the len function in strings. Print max that list. It's going to print the maximum item, the biggest item on the list. For this item, this is the biggest, this is the highest letter in the list. Print min this list is going to print the minimum, which is 1, and print list of sequence. So this sequence is a tuple or a sequence, like you can see, is in, remember, lists are in square bracket, but this is not in square bracket. So we want to convert this to a list. So if I say print list, this is called casting. So you're going to cast it from the tuple that it is up onto a list. It's a tuple or just a sequence. You're going to convert it to a list by simply casting it with the list statement here. The list predefined or reserved word. So let's just run this because it's very simple and straightforward. You can do your practicals. You can practice at any time you want. Okay, so the first one gave us 3 as the number of items in this list. Second one gave us 6, C as the maximum item in the list. Third one gave us a 1. The last one gave us converted the tuple to a list. You can see them here. Finally, let's talk about list method. They're very interesting because they are useful. The first method we're going to talk about is the append method. Before we talk about that, we'll look at the list here. I just gave us 3 examples of a list that we're going to use. So the first one, we'll just run that to keep it on the console. So the first is my list. This is my list. It's an empty list here. This list is a list of 3 items. The line is 3. Remember how to write the len function that we just discussed. Then this sequence is of 3 items also. So the first thing is my list.append. This is my list. Make sure the names are the same. If you change the name, any letter in here, you're going to change this, or it's going to give you an error message that this name is not, defined. So my list.append this list. Because already my list is an empty list, you're going to append this list. Now the method append simply takes the whole of the list and the bracket and appends it to the new list. This is this list, and the method says append this list to my list. So what it does is to cut out the whole of the list with the bracket and then add it up to my list. So let's run it and see what's going to give us. This is already in the console here. So we'll run this. You see, you have 2 brackets now. The first bracket is for my list, which is an empty bracket. Second bracket is for this list. So like I said, the append method takes the whole of the list and the bracket and appends it to the new list. The next is count. Count this list. No, instead of that, let's just use count. Let's create another simple list. So just do a simple example. Okay, let's use this list. This list.count is what I'm going to do. This list.count. How many times we have is? How many is do we have in this list? Let's run this. Just 1. So the count method helps you to count an item or group of items or values in a list. So when I say this list.count, I give it, I specify what I want it to count. Now the extend method, this is very interesting, the extend method, because it's so similar to the append method. So now listen and see the difference between the extend and the append. Unlike the append method, the extend method simply takes the values of the list, the values of the list, and adds it up to the values already in this list. So we're going to take the values from this list and add it to the values in my list. Just the values and not the bracket. But remember, the append takes the whole of the list, just carries it up and put it in this one. But this extend will just pick out all the items and add it up to whatever item already you have in my list. So we can run that. Extend. Talking about extend. Extending is to add items. So already my list had this. Remember, we added this here. So we extended it by adding up all the items in sequence. Okay, extended by sequence. So it's added up all the elements from sequence. That is the difference between the extend and the append. The append adds the whole of the list with the bracket. Extend adds only the items of the new list to the old list. Please don't forget, you are free at any time to ask your questions. Always call us. You can chat us. If you're on our site right now, just chat up if there's any question you want to ask. You are free to do your practice. You go to the console and copy any code you want to try out from this page and go to the console and run it and check it and see what it looks like. But if you have a problem, you are stuck somewhere, please chat us up. We're always here to attend to you. You can also go to Facebook and drop us some message, or YouTube, our YouTube channel, All Love Coding. Go there, drop us a message, and then we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you're one of our registered students, then it's fine. Send us an email at any time, and we'll respond immediately. Thank you. So let's continue. We have talked about the let's talk about the index, the insert. Let's pick up just the important ones. So my list.insert 1 and sequence. So my list.insert is this almost similar to the extend and the append. Remember, the append adds the whole of the list with the brackets to the new list. The extend picks out the item from the list and add it to another list, but the insert picks the items and add it at the beginning at the position specified here. Remember, here there's position 1 specified, so it's going to select the value of the list or the tuple or sequence specified here and then put it in the position of the list on the position here of that list that has been mentioned. So let's run this so that just see what it looks like. It's better when it's so look at it. Position 1, remember, position 1, index 1. Anytime we talk about position, we're talking about the index position. So index 1 is here. This is 0. 1 is in the middle. Remember, these items are already there. So this is a new value that is added. So, and I said at the beginning of this lecture or this lesson or class that a list can contain any value. So you can see the new list now. It has a list in it. It has a tuple and it has separate items. So insert in a given position. That is the usefulness of insert. You want to insert something in a given position, unlike the extend that extends by adding up at the end, appends by adding up at the end, the whole of the list. The insert at a given position. Now remove. Remove is just like delete. If you want to remove an item from a list, just let's run this and see what I'm looking for. So remove the items. Which item was asked to remove? Okay, it was asked to remove this list. So it has removed this list and then print my list. Then my list now is empty because it has removed this list. So we can just run all that. We've discussed everything. Then reverses. Oh, I think that is even the end of it. So finally, the sort. You can just reverse by turning the values the other way around. Then the sort is sort by alphabetical order. or whatever order you're going to give. You can put your instruction here if you want to, but this one, there is no instruction. It simply sorts it alphabetically, in alphabetical order, right? Rather, not alphabetically, but in alphabetical order. That's descending now. Yeah, descending. So just run this. I think the last part of the video for now. So it starts from, it moves ABC to the beginning. So okay, there's one more thing to discuss. Oh, I thought we were done. Okay, the string to list. The string to list. Hope I have enough battery. Okay, so this is very important. I think we need to talk about it before we go. Now, given a string like this, now we've talked about list, we've talked about string. Please, I want you to watch our video on string to help you to get this better. So I've talked about string, talk about list. Now look at this. We have a string here. I called it a string. My name is Luvcoding. I love programming. Now I want to see how to convert this string to a list and back to a string. It's simply done using the split statement. Now, in this string, we have semicolon here, semicolon, semicolon. So, if we want to separate this string into a list, we need to split it by something. So, assuming there is no semicolon, so let me do something. Let me do something just to make us understand it better. So let me do this. Call this string 2 equals just any simple string, blah 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 blah. Okay, that blah blah is too long. Let's get a reasonable blah blah. Another blah blah. Another one. Okay. Yeah. So assuming there is we have, okay, just leave it like this. Okay, I think this is so similar to the first one. Let's just use the first one because it's very similar. Let's use the first one is because it's very similar. When we get, as we go on, we'll get a good example, a better example, and we use it. For now, let's just use it because it's similar to what I have. The difference was just the comma, the semicolon and the comma. So let's just do this. So I want to convert this to a list. So convert the string to a list. All you need to do is to use the split method. We didn't mention the split method up here, but look at it here. So the list, this is the string. The list will just be the string dot split. If you split, anytime you use the split method or the split statement, it splits a string into a list. So the list, the string dot split, if you don't have anything here, it separates them like I love programming. Okay, I think I've seen a good example here. I can use this one now. It's a very good example I want to use. I don't want to use something that let's go string 2. Yes, this example is okay for me. Sorry, Ctrl V. Yeah, this one here. And this one. Yeah. So this is a typical example. There is no colon or comma. So now I want to convert this string 2 to a list. So the list will be, let me just copy the name. I hope you're getting it, but no problem. You can always ask a question. You're welcome to ask any question. The string dot split. So this is what I was trying to discuss. So let's just run this too. If I say the string 2 dot split, this string converts to a list. Just want to get out. I was trying to get a simple string. If I say the string 2 is this string here, the list 2 is this string here dot split, which means convert this string here to a list. It will split each item in the string into individual strings. It will split these items into individual strings, and I will tell you why. We'll run it here. Oh, we didn't use the print statement to print it out. Remember, you always use the print statement to print it out. We're going to print list2. List2. So we'll run this now. Sorry. Yeah. So it split each item in the string into individual elements in a list. It will split each item in a string into individual items in a list. That is what the split statement does. But let me tell you something. The split is based on the space between the items. The space between the items. That is how the split was done, because nothing was specified here. Nothing was specified here, but there was a separation between the items based on the spaces between them. Now let's go back to what we're trying to do. Put this in the comments. To put this as a comment. Okay, so let's go back to what we're trying to do. So we have this string here. We want to convert it to a list, just like this one we have done here. All we need to do is to split it, but now we're going to split it by semicolon, not by space. So which means my name is Luvcoding will be a string of its own. I love programming, especially with Python, will be a string of its own. Have some programming project will be a string of its own. Contact us for free support. Okay, let's run it. Remember, we're splitting it on semicolon, not on the spaces. So the new string is going to be this, this, and so on. So we'll now run it. My name is Luvcoding is a new string. I love programming, especially with Python, a new string, and so on. Exactly what I've described to you. That is how to convert a string to a list. We have talked about string, we've talked about list. This is how to convert a string to a list. Now, to convert a list back to a string, you now use the join method or statement. I want to convert a list back to a string. To do that, you must know which item you want to use to separate the list into the string. And now I want to use the semicolon to separate the items on this list into a string so that I get back exactly what I had at the initial time. So if you're going from the string to a list, you use dot split. And split by what? Whatever character or item you want to use to separate them. Then if you're going back from the list to a string, you use join. If you're going from the string to a list, you use split, splitting on whatever character you desire. Then if you're going back from list to a string, you use join. Okay, so that said, let's join back this list to become the string that it was by using the dot join the list. This is the list. To join this list with semicolon so that it becomes back the string. So back to string equals semicolon dot join the list that we already formed to form it back or take it back to a string. Ooh, now we have it just as it is. It's now back to the string that it is. My name is Luvcoding, semicolon. I love programming with Python, semicolon, just as it was. Thank you so very much for joining us today. It has been fun having you around. Please don't forget to go to our YouTube channel to subscribe. Go to our Facebook page to like and share so that you can also always get our new updates. Please, if you're a member of our site, if you're a registered student in our site, you are very free at any time to send in your questions, your project, your assignment, whatever kind of discussion you want us to have. You are very free and open at any time to talk to us if you are registered with us. But if you're not registered with us, you are welcome also. We love you. We thank you for joining us and for watching our video. Please comment if you want to, share your views, your ideas, or suggestions. This is still Luvcoding. Thank you for joining us, and we are going to bring you another video on tuple. Thank you.